that hustle and grind, yeah. Big business all in my mind. We got what you need and what you wanna hear right here. Oh, late nights, cleaning supplies, yeah. Tough calls all of the time. It's the Built After Hours podcast. Yeah, we here. Let's go. Oh.
Welcome to the Built After Hours podcast.
Welcome back to the Built After Hours podcast. I'm your host, Edwin Eaton, and today we're going to dive deep into leadership and the power of mindset with someone who knows this space inside and out. My guest is a speaker, a coach, and an author of an Amazon best-selling book, The Practice of Feeling Good in Business and Life. He's helped countless entrepreneurs and leaders shift from being overwhelmed and burnt out to clarity, confidence, and action. My guest believes that feeling good isn't just a nice to have, it's a critical business strategy. If you're ready to challenge the way you think about success, we're going to dive into it right now. So please welcome to the show my guest, Mr. Fletcher Ellingson. Fletcher, how are you?
Edwin, I'm exceedingly well. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I'm glad that you decided to be on the show, and we were kind of talking before we jumped on here. You know, I do consulting, and so I get a lot of questions that come through. So I like to change it up a little bit from just the usual interviewing commercial cleaning business owners to my previous podcast was all about sales. So I think one of the missing pieces with commercial cleaning companies that they don't think about is, you know, it's always sales, it's always about bidding. But then when you get the account and you bring the employees in, you have to be a leader. And I think a lot of business owners miss that piece. And you know me, I'm a culture guy. And you have really helped me put together that culture within my business. And I want to bring people on the show that have helped me. You're a key piece to that. Again, I'm just thankful for you being on the show. But before we dive into this, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, you bet. So I help people change the way they think in order to produce outstanding outcomes in their health, wealth, and relationships. And when I say change the way they think, I literally mean as a result of working with me and going through my curriculum, your brain will have new neural pathways that did not exist before, which allows for new thinking that did not exist before. And Edwin, this is good news because when we think differently, we take different actions, which lead to different outcomes. And as an entrepreneur, I know most entrepreneurs, what they want frequently are different outcomes for their business.
Absolutely. You know, in the beginning, I was a little skeptical, and you and I have talked about this. I was a little skeptical about, you know, having a leadership coach. But you and I both have a mutual friend, Eugene, and he's a tough nut to crack. You were able to open him up. And I thought, you know, in my process was Fletcher can open up Eugene. I got to get with him and see what he's all about and see how he can help my team and really hone in my leadership skills. And you've been able to work with my leadership team. You've been able to work with me. And, you know, I do the consulting on the side and I get a lot of questions about leadership. If you're okay with us diving into this, it's going to be kind of a little different format, but I kind of want to bring the questions that business owners have been asking me and really point them in your direction because you're the expert. You're the guy that can answer these questions. So
yeah,
you ready to dive into this?
Yeah.
First, I want to talk about leading frontline teams because again, pain points in the commercial cleaning industry are bidding, proposals, how to get your first customer. But I think what commercial cleaning business owners miss is once you get that signed proposal and you start these businesses, you start up these contracts, you're going to have employees, maybe not in the beginning, but eventually. And so how do you lead them, right? Cleaning crews are often working at night and they really don't see the owners or the managers much. How can leaders stay connected and build trust with the workers that they don't see very often?
Great question and an important one. We have to stay in contact with our teams. It's absolutely critical. Let me say this first. A lot of people get put into a leadership position. However, just because you have the role of a leader does not mean you are a leader. Okay? I really want people to hear that. Just because you have the title of a leader does not mean that you are a leader. A leader is responsible for ultimately these two things. Number one, a leader influences the thinking of its teams. A leader influences the thinking of its people. So if you are in a leadership position and you actually want to lead, that means you are responsible and expected to influence the thinking of those people that have been brought on. So my question to you is, what are you influencing them toward? What is the thinking that you are influencing them toward? And the second thing a leader does is they are responsible for enrolling their people into a vision of what is possible. I'm going to say that again. Leaders, great leaders, and I invite your listeners to really think of a leader that you respect, that's really impacted you. And what you're going to see is that they have influenced you and enrolled you into a vision of what is possible. That's what great leaders do. So to answer your question, how do we stay in touch and influence the people that we don't see on a regular basis? By texting them, by emailing them, by phone, by calling them, making this a priority. But most importantly, when we onboard them, we are not hiring them simply to clean. We have a much more important vision. And now I don't know what that vision is for, the owners out here of cleaning businesses, but you had a vision when you started this business. Enroll your people into it so that they're not there just cleaning. They're part of the vision. And when they catch that, they have ownership of it. And now you've got an incredibly loyal and proficient team member.
I like that. Because in the commercial cleaning industry, and I bring this up a lot, the turnover rate, it's 200%. I mean, it's brutal. This industry is brutal because, again, people don't think of, making a career out of cleaning toilets and taking out trash. And some people are just here as part-time to supplement their income. But again, we still have to treat them, again, to, like you said, the vision. We have to give them a vision because, yes, you are cleaning toilets, you are taking out trash, but here's the end game. This is the vision of the company, right?
Yeah. And like what immediately comes to me, Edwin, is I would, if I were in that position of enrolling my teams who are working in this cleaning industry, I mean, one of the things I would enroll them in is like, what we're doing is providing a feel-good experience for our clients. I mean, literally, when somebody goes into a bathroom, like I hate going into bathrooms at airports, for instance.
Right? Yeah.
They're disgusting. They're smelly. They're crowded. They're gross. There's big cracks in it's terrible. What if they changed their philosophy? And I know they've worked on it. I've seen it. But what if they wanted your experience that when you went into a bathroom at the airport, like you felt good, like you felt comfortable, like you felt you had a privacy, that you could count on things being clean, smelling decent. You had a feel-good experience. Like when you go into the bathrooms at the lounges, for instance, right? And like American Express lounge. I mean, they're nice. They feel good. So enroll them into the vision of what's possible. Where we want our clients to feel good when they come into that restroom or that kitchen or that broom closet, whatever it is. Like, wow, this is cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when you walk into that bathroom, it's a first impression, right? But again, it's that vision that whatever company that's cleaning that facility has set. And this is what they want done, right?
Yes.
But to touch on the high turnover piece again, and for new leaders, new business owners that are listening to this, because I know they're already getting a lot of insight from you, and maybe you did answer this, what leadership practices can help reduce the turnover and really create some kind of sense of belonging?
Yeah. Well, you just nailed it. Are you creating a sense of belonging for your people? Or are you just hiring a body? If that's your attitude.
That happens a lot. Sorry to cut you off, but that happens a lot that we're just quick. We get 3 or 4, 5 startups, and then all of a sudden we have to hire. There's no process. We just put out a Craigslist ad and we hire right away. First person to apply, boom, we're just going to hire them. But that's not really the way to go about it, right?
Right. So like you, for instance, I know that you've got a mission. I know you've got a vision. I know you've got these things written down, and I'm suspecting that that's part of your onboarding training is you're sharing that information. It's more than just cleaning, right? We're making a difference for our clients. And we take pride in that. We have integrity about it. We have high standards. And I don't care what the job is. Like, I used to do landscaping for years, and I was digging ditches. I was just doing hard manual labor. But man, when I had to dig that ditch, I was going to do it better than anybody else. I was going to have pride about that ditch that I just dug. I was going to have pride on the bermed edges. I took pride in it because that was my work. Now, if we can instill that into our teams, you're going to cut down on that revolving door of people exiting. But here's what I want the leaders and owners to really hear. If people are coming and going frequently, that is on you.
Yes. Yeah.
You've got to step up your leadership. You've got to enroll them in a vision. You've got to do a better job of influencing their thinking. And if you can't do that, then I invite you to consider this. We got to take a look at your thinking.
Absolutely agree with that. Now, listen, here's another question that came through on an email, and I thought this is an important one.
Yeah.
It says, they said, a lot of our cleaning workers are part-time and have other jobs. How can leaders share what's important and what they expect without confusing or pushing people away? Because again, they're part-time jobs, they have other jobs. And so, sometimes it's like you're walking on eggshells with them. You don't want to be too demanding because then they're going to quit and you're going to start the process over again. So how can they share this without being confusing or pushing them away?
Excellent. So the number one thing we can do is make our people feel valued. When people feel valued, they want to stay. When they feel important, they want to stay. So number one, let them know, you know what? I'm glad you're here. In fact, this is one thing my wife does to me multiple times during the week. We're just hanging out, or maybe we're in the kitchen, and she'll say, "Hey, Fletcher." And I'll turn around thinking she's going to ask me a question or make a request. And I'll say, "Yeah, what's up, babe?" And she'll just say, "I'm glad you're here." And every time that makes me smile. Every time I smile because it feels so good to know that somebody is glad that I am here.
Makes you feel important.
It makes you feel important. It makes you feel significant. And that's one of the 6 human needs, is this need to feel significant. So if you can make your people feel significant, and there are a variety of ways of doing that. In fact, that's one of the things that your company excels at. I mean, you guys are like the poster child of this, because all your people feel significant. They feel celebrated. Why? Because you actually celebrate them, like on a regular basis. Anybody who knows about your company can see this. All you have to do is go to LinkedIn and you'll see celebration after celebration after celebration. Make your people feel like they matter.
Yeah. And I didn't understand that until you really broke it down to me. And yes, when they do feel celebrated, they do feel part of the team. Again, they feel important. And
Yep.
We've been doing these celebrations, and it's anniversaries. We went away from Employee of the Month, and now we do anniversaries. And what's nice about it is now it doesn't matter if you've been with the company for 8, 9, 10 years or 1 year. You're going to be treated the same in this celebration. The whole team is going to come together and celebrate you. It's your day because you put in the time, you grinded it, you made it a year or 2 years, whatever it is, and we're all going to have fun with it. Right.
Yeah.
And it's true. They feel important. So I think that's the huge takeaway right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Right on.
But Fletcher, I mentioned that, sometimes managers have little face-to-face time with their employees. And at times, there's conflicts that happen and there's communication breakdowns. How can leaders tell early on that communication is starting to break down before it gets worse?
Yeah. So number one, is there integrity in the work that's occurring? Okay. Is there continuity? Right. Is there a congruency? Right. Does the outcome match what I thought I trained them to do? And if you're seeing that there is something incongruent there, get into communication. Don't wait. Get into communication without accusation, without blame. All right. You do this in the way of a check-in. Hey, I noticed this. Help me understand how that happened. Hey, I noticed this. I may not have been clear. Hey, I noticed this. I probably didn't train you as well. You take responsibility as the manager and the leader. You take responsibility for getting curious about, did I provide adequate training?
Yeah, you're not jumping the gun and saying, well, hey, Fletcher, you did this wrong. Why did you do it this way? Right? Because again, that's pushing them away.
Yep. And if it's clear or blatant that like they just, did a crummy job because they were rushing or whatever, then have that conversation, but have it in a supportive way. Like, hey, it looks like there was some rushing going on here. Help me understand what was going on. And then you can offer correction in a very gentle way. They're your team member. Right? It's an opportunity to train up.
Always be training, because it's a revolving door. You're just going to have the same problems over and over and over again.
Exactly. You got it, man.
So touching on communication, because that's huge. And I think a lot of employees, especially in this industry, they feel unheard or unvalued. And I know we talked about culture and celebrating them, but is there a way that a manager, a leader, can establish trust when the employees are feeling unheard or unvalued?
Oh, man. This is such an important topic, Edwin. I'm like inviting your listeners right now just to like really get present, because what we're going to cover is powerful. There are 3 things that establish a bond of trust. Okay. So I want you to imagine a triangle, a pyramid. Okay. And in the word, we're going to write the word trust. There are 3 things that create trust. And would you agree, first off, when your team members trust you, what they're willing to do for you is much more than if they don't? They're
absolutely
right.
Trust, communication. Yeah. It goes a long ways.
So there are 3 things that create an opportunity for creating trust. Number 1, when a person feels heard, they're way more willing to give you their trust. Okay. When they have the experience of being heard. Now, notice I didn't say when you hear them. When they have the experience of being heard by you. Okay. Not that you're just listening to them. So check in with them. Is this what you said, Edwin? This is what I heard you say. Is that accurate? Oh, it's not? Oh, tell me more. Like really get curious about what they're saying. You should be able to say back to them what they just said, using their same language. Why is it important to use their same language? Because that's their programming. When you say back to them what they just said, using mostly their language, they will have the experience of being heard. Wow, Edwin really gets me. That's the experience. Wow, Edwin gets me. He understands me. I feel heard. When a person feels heard, they're way more inclined to give you their trust. Number 2, when a person feels supported, right? So when they feel supported, way more inclined to give you their trust. But here's the deal. A person can feel heard and still not trust you. Okay. A person can actually even feel supported and still not trust you. So the third thing, the linchpin in this is when a person feels safe, they're going to trust you. So you get, when a person feels safe, heard, and supported, now you have this unshakable bond of trust. So leaders out there, managers out there, if you want to create trust within your employees, ask yourself this: am I creating an atmosphere where my people actually feel safe? Or are they worried they're going to get in trouble? Are they worried they're going to get reprimanded? Are they worried they're going to be made fun of, diminished? Or are they supported? Are they heard? Do they feel safe? Because if you can create that culture, you're going to win.
Amazing stuff. I mean, I feel like I'm getting a coaching session right now, right? But I mean, this is great for the listeners because, again, besides going after your first customers and learning how to bid, once you get these employees, and that's why we're talking leadership, you have to have these skills so that you can continue to grow, because you don't want to be out there cleaning every single day, every single night. You have to have employees, and you have to be able to communicate and have leadership to help grow your company, right?
You got it. Yep.
This is great. Well, we're moving right along. And Fletcher, this brings us to the first segment of the show that I like to call live sales role play. But because you're not a salesman, you're a leadership coach. This is going to be the live leadership role play. But before we get into it, I need to give a shout out to our sponsor. So live leadership role play is brought to you by Clean Connect. Running a cleaning company is tough. Scheduling, emails, customer calls, it can feel like you're working 24/7. That's where Clean Connect comes in. They provide virtual assistants who understand the cleaning industry so you can delegate the busy work and focus on growing your business. Free up your time, cut the stress, and scale faster with Clean Connect. Check them out today at cleanconnect-va.com and see what a dedicated VA can do for your company. So Fletcher, I'm going to ask you a question about leadership, and I want to see how you would handle this.
Okay.
So are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So let's say I have a manager or a team leader that's a great worker, but when it comes to their team, they seem to be a dictator. Is there, it's their way and their way only, right? As a dictator. So how would Fletcher go about handling this situation?
Yeah. So first off, we want to get curious about, I would help that person get curious. Why are we having this response? That's number one. Tell me, hey, Edwin, why? It seems like it's either your way or the highway. Help me understand why you feel so strongly about that. So that's going to be the first thing. As a leader, I'm going to get curious about my manager and my manager's style. Help me understand why this is going on for you. Then, based on what they're saying, we can dive into it. But first, as a leader, we're not trying to correct. We can't correct without getting curious first. So I encourage managers, get curious about why a person is doing it the way they're doing it. And then we want to get them into a coachable mode. Number two. So now we want to make sure that they feel heard, right? Because I want this person to trust me, because I'm going to give them some alternative ways of conducting themselves. But first, I got to get their trust, because if I don't have their trust, they're going to resist me, right?
Yep.
So I'm going to ask them, like, so after they answer me and we get curious, then I'm going to say, hey, are you open? Are you in a place where you're open to some coaching? Are you in a place where you're open to looking at how to do it differently? Notice I'm not telling them. There's a time and place to tell people, but if we're dealing with somebody who has more of like a dictator mindset, my way or the highway, you got to get their buy-in, because they don't like to be told what to do. We want them as much as possible to feel like they're part of the solution. If they can see it as like, oh, they're helping come up with the solution, they have buy-in and they're going to implement it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like that. To your point, it's kind of like sports. I'm a sports guy. You know, we have practice for a reason, right? They just don't throw you into the game. You have to practice. So this isn't a one-time thing, right? This is kind of an ongoing, somebody's got to be the coach. You as the main person, the owner of the company, the main leader, you have to continuously coach this person, coach your team, correct?
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up. You see, this can't be a one and done experience. We've got to be ongoingly coaching our teams. We have to be offering them that feedback so that they get used to it. So they get used to and they get practiced in this communication. And by the way, when I'm offering that suggestion and that correction, like I'm going to be like, yo, Edwin, dude, you're on my team. And so this is not a criticism. This is just an opportunity for growth. This is an opportunity to perform at that next higher level, right? To become more efficient. So thanks for, and here's what I will frequently do. Thanks for being open. Okay. I'm thanking them in advance of my feedback. So thanks for being open and willing to have this conversation with me. Our relationship is important to me, and I know that our relationship can handle these types of conversations. I'm totally couching this entire conversation. Now, some people might say, God, Fletcher, do you really have to handhold that much? Do you really have to baby them that much? Well, let me ask you a question. Do you want an effective and strong team that has a lot of trust? Then yes. We've got to take care of our people.
You do. So kind of correlating this with sales, because with sales, you're talking to prospects, there's this thing about how many times you need to talk to a prospect to determine whether you're going to be able to close the deal with them or not. On the leadership topic with this, for somebody that's a dictator and you continuously coach them, how much time do you give them? How many times do you go back and continuously coach them before you have to make a move, either put them in a different position or just move on from them completely? I mean, obviously you don't want to give up on them right away, but how long is this going to take? Because it can affect your business and it can affect the employees.
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's going to be, there's a couple factors there. Number one, how much is it going to cost to replace this person? Right. We all know that replacing a person, especially like in a managerial position, there's a high cost to that. Right. Now we got to hire somebody, train them up, possibly go through the same stuff. Right. So it's really, what's your tolerance? What's your personal tolerance for learning how to do this effectively? And number two, you do have to weigh that financial piece of it, right? Yeah. Is it going to be more cost effective to cut bait and move on and get somebody else? Or do I give them another chance and another chance in order to do this? Now, depending on the situation, that person may just require a high level of handholding for an extended period of time. Again, it can't be the one and done. It's beautiful when that happens, but I don't know about you, but I've got some serious programming in my head and it affects my behaviors and attitudes, right? That's what a mindset. Mindset is a fixed mind. We use that word a lot, mindset. But what it actually means is that part of your thinking is fixed. It's not going to change. That's what a mindset is. It's set. So in order to shift that, it's going to take laying down new neural pathways so that a new program can exist. And now when that new program exists, now the brain has an opportunity to run that program instead of just the old one.
So you continue this and you have a higher percentage of keeping them on board and hopefully not burning money by trying to hire somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like that strategy. I do want to dig into issues too and problems that a leader might encounter and how they can effectively handle them. This is one that I hear a lot from other cleaning business owners. And I get a lot of emails, or when we're doing one-on-ones, they bring this up quite a bit, is when they have an employee that disagrees with their decision or a manager's decision or their instructions on how to do something. Again, I think this goes back to what I asked you earlier, but what's the best way to approach that conversation, but still maintain that respect and authority? Because ultimately, yes, as a business owner, you want things done a certain way, typically your way, but you don't want to come off as a dictator. How do you approach that conversation, just to, again, make sure that they still feel heard and they're still valued?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this question. It's because this happens frequently, but you're going to have a much higher success rate if you have a culture of trust, right? So it's going to come back again to culture. Have you created that bond of trust with them? Because they can feel heard. They can even feel supported, even though you're disagreeing. They can feel heard and supported still. Okay. And if you're doing it in a way that feels not threatening, they can feel safe. And at the end of the day, you have this safe culture, and ultimately you have the authority to make the final decision. But they can still have gone through a process of feeling heard, supported, and safe. And now it's just a matter of like, oh, okay, well, Edwin said do it this way, so I'm doing it this way. Now, if there's a lot of resistance around that, we got to help that person to get curious about why they're resisting, and because resistance that's the killer of relationships, is resistance, and that's one of the topics that I would frequently cover in training with teams, is this thing around resistance.
I think a lot of the questions that I'm asking and the questions that I've received all kind of intertwine with everything that you're saying. I think they all kind of come back to, to feeling valued and communicating. And so, leadership again is a mindset, right? And
yes,
you continuously have to learn. And, whether that's reading books, listening to podcasts, things like that. One thing that does come up quite a bit, and, I'm not a huge company by any means, but I'm not a small company either. And so we have multiple locations, multiple managers. And a lot of times, even though our managers have great relationships with the employees, sometimes they don't feel comfortable bringing up an issue with them. They'll go to another manager or to another employee, and then sometimes it just kind of spirals out of control. You know, you tell one person one thing, and then that person tells another person something else, and all of a sudden the story is completely different than what it should be. But is there a way that leaders can make, even though they have great relationships, but is there a way that they can make their team feel more comfortable to speak up, even though they know they're
Yes.
the boss? So just like feel comfortable with letting them know what's going on.
Yeah. Okay. This is really good, Edwin. So first off, we use this word, they don't feel comfortable, right? They like us, but they don't feel comfortable bringing this issue up. Comfortable is code for they don't feel safe. So it comes back to that trust thing. We haven't established a safe a sense of safety for them. Otherwise, if they felt safe, they would bring it to your attention. They go to the other person because that other person feels safer. Okay. So if you're in a managerial position, a leadership position, man, I'm telling you, safety, help your people feel safe. And then you asked another good question, like how can we help people really, become efficient at this? Role playing. No joke. I know a lot of people like, oh, really, role playing? Yeah. Oh, role playing feels uncomfortable. It might be it's probably a waste. No, it's not a waste of time. So you set up a meeting, you have what the hot button topics are. You know what are the uncomfortable topics. You know, you've been through them already. So you run every person through that scenario, and they have to have it with their manager.
So not just managers to managers, but managers to employees.
Right. So and managers to managers. I mean, that's awesome. But you practice having that conversation. Why? Because in the moment, we want to be able to fall back to our training. Okay. And so if we've never trained having these difficult, challenging conversations, it's going to be really uncomfortable. We're going to be falling all over our words. But if we're trained, say like for instance, hey, Edwin, that training we had last month, I need to implement it right now. What I'd like you to hear from me is blah, blah, blah. And then you on the receiving end will be like, got it, Fletcher. What I heard you say is this, blah, 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 blah. Right. But in this training, we know that as soon as these key phrases are spoken, we have to dial in. We have to pay attention. We have to concentrate. We're taking the other person completely serious, and we're letting them know ahead, you have my attention. I'm open to what you're saying right now. But this comes back to the training. So role playing can be incredibly helpful.
I like that because, when you came and you spoke with our team, it opened up a lot of their eyes and their minds too on what's possible. And, we have our manager meetings once a week. And I think what was great is I slowly stepped away myself, and I told everybody one by one, you're each going to lead this meeting, because I want to see how you guys are going to come about running the crews, running the other leaders, and see what happens. And, a great thing that came about was one of my managers said, hey, I think what would be great, because I wouldn't say our communication is horrible, but I think in any business, there's hiccups with your communication. And one of the leaders said, you know what? I think what would be great is we have one-on-ones with each other. And every week we meet with a different manager and just talk about what's going good. Hey, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And it's kind of spiraled off, and it's become its own thing that I don't even have to follow up on these anymore, or ask for emails on who are you meeting with this week. They just do it. And sometimes they'll meet with 2 or 3 of the other managers every week. And this is on their own, that they're doing it themselves. So something kind of clicked with them, and that's what they're doing now. And I think the communication just continues to get better with everybody.
That is a powerful practice. I hope your folks are listening to this right now. That is incredibly powerful, because it's kind of like networking, right? When you go to a networking event, I mean, if you just talk to the same person every single time, that's a waste of time, right? But what you're helping them get into is getting different people's perspectives. They're getting practice expressing themselves. We've got to practice expressing ourselves. And when you're having one of these difficult conversations, one of the best ways to start it off is like, hey, Edwin, it's kind of uncomfortable for me to say this, but I need to have a conversation with you. Like own your discomfort. You don't have to pretend you're not uncomfortable. Own it. Like, hey, I'm feeling kind of anxious or or a little fearful right now, but I was wondering if we could talk about something. Practice expressing yourself. And again, to some of the people who are like, oh boy, do we really got to get emotional? Hey, your people are emotional beings. Mm-hmm. And when you can help them feel comfortable and safe expressing them, when they're going to feel better. And when people feel better, guess what? They work better. They sell better. They communicate better. They learn better. They simply live better.
This is great stuff. I mean, I'm throwing questions at you and you've got the answers right away. So this is awesome. But before we dive into more, let's talk a little bit about kind of the services that you offer, the coaching services, because I kind of mentioned it. You're helping our team out, and you're in my area in Washington State, but maybe there's somebody that's listening to this in New York or in Florida. I mean, are you able to help their businesses out, help them out individually as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm happy, to fly wherever you're at, and we can do a weekend intensive where we bring your people together and just crack some things wide open and create some really new ways of thinking and communicating. Or we can do it via Zoom. And I've got workshops, or I've got one-on-one, I've got group, and I've got an entire curriculum that is designed for leaders that is about 9 months long, which will radically transform the way you think, speak, and operate, and therefore will radically transform results in your life.
And it just makes you a great overall business owner, a leader.
Yeah. And, we all want to feel good. That's, right? I mean, we all want to feel good at the end of the day. And I don't just mean happy, but I mean like satisfied, fulfilled, eager, enthusiastic, optimistic, courageous, connected, safe, right? We want to feel good. And that all stems from our thinking. And when we feel good, we simply perform at a much higher level. So if you want your teams to perform at a higher level, we've got to address their thinking.
Absolutely. And so if somebody wants to get in touch with you, I'll put all your information in the show notes, but is there a website that they can go to check you out and all your services?
Yeah, you bet. Look me up at FletcherEllingson.com or thepracticeoffeelinggood.com. You can also grab a copy of my book, The Practice of Feeling Good, on Amazon or Facebook, or just email me at Fletcher@FletcherEllingson.com.
And we'll put that all in there, but it is the Amazon best-selling book. You missed that there.
Thanks, man.
Hey, Fletcher, this brings us to the next segment of the show, and this segment is called After Hours Confessions. But before we jump into it, we need to give a shout out to our sponsor. After Hours Confessions is brought to you by DLN Web Studio. If your website is basic AF, if you're losing customers fast, DLN Web Studio is the go-to for professional businesses that want to stand out. From pixel-perfect websites to killer marketing materials, logos, and more, trust the pros to lock in more customers. Ready to upgrade your online game? Head to dlnwebstudio.com. So, Fletcher, this part of the show, I like to call After Hours Confessions, and this is an opportunity for you to share a story about you or your business that no one has ever heard before, or maybe you have a hidden talent that not many people know about. So are you willing to share something with us?
Yeah, you bet, man. I think one of the things that stretched me the most, and a lot of people don't know this, was a number of years ago, I realized that I had to become a master asker. And what I mean by that is I want to be able to make requests of anybody without feeling the fear of rejection. And so I saw a speaker one time talk about this, and he went out and filmed himself making requests of people. But I was like, I've got to do that. I've got to become a master asker. So the way to do that and get over my fear of rejection was to expose myself to as much rejection intentionally as possible. And so I began this year-long experiment called the rejection experiment, where I regularly would make audacious and bold and ridiculous requests of strangers. with the intention of being told no. Now, all right, so the 3 rules of the game were this. Number 1, the request absolutely had to make me nervous. It had to like strike fear into my heart. Okay. Number 2, I couldn't tell the person why I was asking this question. And number 3, I couldn't be doing it to impress anybody. So I couldn't like be out with my buddies at Starbucks and say like, hey, watch, I'm going to go do this rejection experiment. I had to do it by myself, alone. And Edwin, I can tell you that this was one of the most frightening things I've ever done. I frequently have coaches in my life, and I got so locked up with fear around this that my coach was like, are you committed to this or not? And I was like, I am committed, but I'm struggling. He's like, okay, well, I'll tell you what, do you trust me? And I said, yeah. He said, okay, then here's what you're going to do. After we get off this coaching call, you're going to go to your store, you're going to buy a can of wet dog food, and you're going to put it on your counter with a spoon by it. And he said, like, how many rejection experiments were you planning on doing this week? And I said, 4. He said, great. He said, if you do not do those 4, I will expect a video at the beginning of next week of you opening this can of dog food and eating it. So he said, so pick a healthy kind because you might be eating it. Okay. So I did exactly that. And I got on it, man. I was like doing these, but here's the deal, Edwin. Even though it terrified me to make these requests, it allowed me to step into courage every single time. So I was building up the muscle of courage. And here's the other thing. Probably around 80% of the requests that I made, I was sure they were going to say no. But in fact, they said yes.
Really?
Yeah. And I mean, they were some ridiculous ones. Like, I'll just give you one example. Down in Southern California, I was visiting my in-laws and I was on a morning walk, and I knew that it was one of the days where I had to make one of these rejection experiments happen. And I'm walking down the neighborhood and I'm not even thinking about it. But then I see up to my left, there's this house, their garage door is open and there's a ping pong table in there. Okay. And I'm like, I love playing ping pong. And I'm like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh no, don't. Don't do this one. Pass on this one. See, what happens is when you come up against fear, your brain automatically just starts chattering at you so fast and so loud. It knew I was going to have to take that on as a rejection experiment. And my brain was already immediately trying to talk me out. So I knew that I had to do it because I was terrified. So I did it. So I walked up, and this one was particularly difficult because I was crossing a personal property boundary, going onto private property. And I went up to the front door and I knocked on their door. And they had a golden lab that was barking I could hear it barking like crazy behind the door. And then a lady comes to the door and says, can I help you? And I said, yeah. I said, hey, my name's Fletcher. You don't know me. I'm from Washington State, but I'm up here visiting some of my in-laws. And I was just on a morning walk and I noticed you had a ping pong table in the garage. I was wondering if anybody would like to play a game of ping pong with me. And so they say, and she said exactly what almost everybody says when I make these ridiculous requests. She's just like, what? And so I went through the thing, my name's Fletcher from Washington State, just walking by. Anyone want to play ping pong? And she's like, do we know you? I was like, no, you don't know me. By the way, I've already said this, right? So I've totally interrupted her thinking pattern. She's like, her mind is scrambled right now. She's trying to make sense of this. Why is a stranger coming to ask me to play ping pong? And she's like, and we don't know you? Nope, you don't know me. But she says, just a second. She shuts the door. I hear muffled voices in the background. And a few seconds later, the husband comes and he opens the door. He says, can I help you? So I go through the same thing again from Fletcher, from Washington State, blah, blah, blah. And same questions. We don't know you? No. And you just want to play ping pong? Yes. Notice the pattern here. They're establishing that they don't know me. They're getting very clear that they do not know me. Right. I am a stranger. And he says, just a minute. He shuts the door and more hushed voices. And a few seconds later, their teenage son comes to the door and says, hey, my parents said you're looking to play some ping pong. Do you want to play? And I said, absolutely. Let's go. And so I go out with this young teenage kid. We play a couple games of ping pong. He whips me and I'm like, hey, thanks a lot, dude. That was fun. Have a good one. And I was on my way. Now, I don't know about you, but I was fully expecting a no on that. A big fat no. No, we don't know you. No, we're not playing ping pong with you.
That's where I thought you were leading.
Exactly, right? And I'm telling you, dude, what I learned from that is people are not rejecting, when they do say no, they're not rejecting me, they're rejecting the offer. And this is super important for salespeople. They're not rejecting you. They're simply rejecting the offer, right? So
crazy.
The rejection experiment, that's something that a lot of people don't know I did, but it was a tremendous opportunity for personal growth.
Sounds scary. I don't know that I could do it, but pretty cool. Random strangers, right?
Random strangers, yeah.
But something too, because I know you and you came and spoke with our team. I think a hidden talent you have, which I didn't know you had, is you're also a magician.
Oh, yeah. I'm a professional magician of like 35 years. I thoroughly enjoy it because I love being fooled myself. I absolutely love it when I see a magic trick that I can't figure out because especially as adults, it's extremely rare that we have that moment of not being able to figure anything out because we think we know everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to have that moment where that doesn't make sense and I don't know how you did it, it's like this beautiful moment. It feels exhilarating to just like, oh my gosh, that looked and felt like real magic. And so I love, it's kind of like play for adults. It's just like we're totally suspending our disbelief and doing these things. And yeah, we don't know how they're done. And it's just really fun.
Yeah. You had my entire staff in suspense trying to figure out how you did that card trick or, so that's pretty cool. But hey, I appreciate you sharing the stories. That's it's pretty cool and pretty amazing story, just talking to strangers and all of a sudden you're playing ping pong with their teenager. So
yeah.
But jumping back into our conversation, we got a little bit of time left here. But over the years, I've had some tough conversations, just like you walking up to a stranger's house and asking to play ping pong. But I've had to have some tough conversations, and I know, with employees, and I'm sure some of the listeners that are listening to this today have been in that spot too, where they have to have a tough conversation with an employee. But when someone brings up a hard topic, how can a leader, how can I, or how can the listener listen without getting defensive? Because I think sometimes we put up our barriers and the first thing we think is just to get defensive, especially if it's something that they're attacking us with about a hard topic. How can we listen to their statement without getting defensive?
Right. Because sometimes, yeah, this is an important question, an important conversation, because we're not making a decision to get defensive. We simply become defensive without our brain does it without our permission or consent, right? And it just happens like that. In the blink of an eye, oh, I'm defensive. So here's how we interrupt that cycle. And this is the practice that I still do today. When I get defensive, when I get agitated, or when I'm feeling anxiety, I will literally voice it. And here's my exact wording. Whoa. I notice my body's having a reaction right now. Because it's having an intense emotional reaction. When we feel accused and we feel suddenly defensive, what happened was your adrenaline just spiked.
Mm-hmm.
You got a huge adrenaline spike and your heart is literally beating faster than it was just a few seconds ago. You can feel clammy, right? Your throat can start closing up. You're having a physical emotional reaction. So what I do, and I'll even tell this with my wife. Whoa, my body's having a physical reaction. Now notice, I didn't say I'm having a reaction because I'm not my body. My body and brain, they do stuff all the time without my consent or approval. So what I say is like, whoa, I'm noticing my body's having a reaction. And what that does is it cues the other person. It lets you know, it lets Edwin know like, oh, whoa, he just had a reaction. So then I'll say, whoa, let me just calm down for a second. And let me like just consider what you said. So what I heard you say is that the job I did at that data center was not up to par. Is that accurate? Okay, so I'm going to repeat. I'm not jumping to a defense. I'm making sure that I actually got your communication. Because how many times am I wrong? Frequently. How many mistakes do I make? Many. So I'm just giving you the benefit of the doubt. So Edwin, what I heard you say was like, the job I did over there at the data center was not up to par. Is that accurate? Yeah, Fletcher, you did a terrible job. So the job that was done was, in your opinion, terrible. Is that accurate? Yes. Okay, good. I just want to make sure I'm understanding that. Now, what I'm doing is I'm interrupting the normal pattern of our communication. And I'm doing that purposely because I want us to interact differently. You feel heard, and I'm clear about now what you said. Okay, would it be all right if I gave you my take on what happened over there at the data center? Again, I'm really being polite. I'm being polite because this is it's an opportunity to have tempers flare. Would you agree? Yeah. So what I'm doing is I'm bringing down the temperature. And by the way, if I'm able to do this, if I'm able to bring back down the temperature and actually get your concern, are we more inclined to resolve this? Yeah, we're more inclined to resolve it peacefully. So I'm going to practice. And so this is the practice. Whoa, there goes my body having a reaction. Help me understand what your concern is. Got it. Okay. Can I offer an explanation of what happened? And then can we work through how we could possibly do it better? Whatever. Now, look, I know that this is, we're just doing this in a nutshell on the podcast, but this is the formula. Notice your emotional reaction, take responsibility, and then invite, make sure each other feels heard, and then work on the solution.
This is a great conversation, and I know a lot of people are getting a lot out of it. We're probably going to have to do a part 2 on this because, there's a lot. I have a lot more questions to ask, and we're limited on the time frame that we have. But, a couple more questions for you before we end this today. Managers want to be approachable. And how can managers stay approachable even when, they're under a lot of pressure or they're stressed out? Because outside of work, we're dealing with a lot of stuff. And then at work, we're dealing with a lot of stuff. And so some managers can have a lot of pressure and they're stressed out. But how can we still stay approachable even though we're dealing with whatever we're dealing with inside of ourselves?
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Yeah, because managers and leaders can be under a lot of pressure. They can have serious, legitimate time constraints. So again, as a leader, own that. Remember, influence the thinking of the people you're around and be in communication. Hey guys, I'm just letting everybody know that there's a lot happening for me today. So if I seem like I'm distracted, it's because I am. I got a lot going on. Or you give permission, like, hey, I got a lot going on, but I just want you to know I'm going to be moving fast and quick. I'm going to move in quickly around here, but things are okay. You can still talk to me. Or, hey, today or for the next couple hours, I can't be taking questions. I have a commitment I'm working on. So what I'm saying in a nutshell is be in communication with your people about what's going on with you. You don't have to be Superman or Wonder Woman. Be in communication.
Again, good stuff. But Fletcher, this is going to bring us to the final segment of the show. And this segment I like to call Rapid Fire Roulette. But again, before we jump into it, I need to give a shout out to one of our sponsors. So Rapid Fire Roulette is brought to you by Wildscape Media. Does your cleaning business need a social media glow up or pro commercial that makes folks go, damn, that company is badass? Meet the dynamic husband and wife duo who'll jet anywhere to capture your story in epic style. Ready to stand out and turn heads? Hit up wildscapemedia.com and let Wildscape Media paint your brand in bold. So Fletcher, rapid fire roulette. I'm going to ask you 5 questions and you're going to get 3 seconds to give me a quick answer. So you let me know. You tell me when you're ready.
All right. My body just got nervous. Okay, I'm ready.
All right, let's do this. Have you ever asked ChatGPT what it knows about you?
Yes, I have.
Go-to dance move.
Swing dancing.
At a speaking event, what's your walk-up song? What's your hype song?
Oh, I feel good. Da-na-na-na-na-na.
And he's singing it. Okay. So what actor would play Fletcher in a movie?
Dang, what's his name? Maybe Brendan Fraser.
Brendan Fraser. Okay. So because I saw you a couple weeks ago, you got out of your car and you were wearing your Crocs. On a scale from 1 to 10, how confident are you strutting around town in your Crocs?
Absolutely a 10.
There we go. Back to the ChatGPT thing. What did you ask it about you?
Yeah, I just said, hey, what do you know about Fletcher Ellingson? And it brought up a bunch of that he's been on podcasts, he's written a book, and chat is very affirming, right? So it brought up all the good stuff.
Right. And then I think you have a Tesla, so is it Grok that you have?
I've never used that. I just I don't know why. I've just I got with chat and we become good friends. So
somebody was telling me that has a Tesla that Grok, you could have a full-on conversation with it. So you might want to check that out.
Okay. All right. Will do.
So Fletcher, before we close out the interview, just a couple more questions for you. What's next for you? And any big goals on the horizon?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. Actually, I just finished the manuscript and all of the illustrations. I finished the manuscript a while ago, but I've been waiting on illustrations for my new book. And this book is a children's book, but I wanted it to be one of those books, those kids' books that adults really love and appreciate too, because it's got a profound message. And so what I did was I distilled one of my core teachings from my coaching curriculum, just this one single concept, which I think is the most profound concept in my life that I know of. And I created a children's book around it. And I hired an illustrator out of British Columbia who hand drew all of the illustrations. No AI, just hand drew. They're beautiful and colorful. And so that's what's next for me. I'm planning on launching this book in time for Christmas. And so that's a big deal for me.
Very cool. Best of luck on that, right?
Thanks, man.
So if you could give one piece of advice or feel good advice to a cleaning business owner, what would it be?
Yeah. Get clear about your vision and enroll your teams in that vision. Get their buy-in and then review it frequently with them so you all are on the same page.
There we go. Perfect advice. So I'm going to put all your handles in the show notes, but what is the name of your Amazon best-selling book again? Because if you don't have it, you need to get a copy of it.
Here it is. It's The Practice of Feeling Good, How to Upgrade Your Thinking and Live a Feel-Good Life.
It's an awesome book. I've read it front to back. It's good stuff. So
right on. Thank you, Edwin.
Fletcher, I appreciate you coming on the show. Like I said, we talked in a previous episode, we talked all about sales. And so this was all about leadership. Still had a ton more questions. So again, we may have to do a part 2 of this to dive deeper into those other questions, but appreciate everything you're doing. I wish you much success with the new book, the new children's book that you have coming out. And I know that I'm going to see a lot more of you, especially working with me and my team.
Right on. Thank you, Edwin.
Thanks again to Fletcher for being part of the show. If you enjoyed this episode, drop a comment, share with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next story of entrepreneurs grinding after hours. We'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Built After Hours Podcast. Please be sure to like and subscribe and share with someone you know who is building after hours. Remember, be bold, take risks, and get results. See you next time.